and there's always this weird delay.
Mm-hmm.
I would have laughed if that was when it popped in with the time. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me this evening are Adam,
Hello.
Sora Luna,
Good evening.
and of course, as it is once again a Friday, I am the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. And if you guys heard us before, it's because there's this weird way that this shit does it where it'll pop in with "you're live" when we aren't actually live. Then it'll pop in with the number of viewers. Then it will pop in with the time. And it's only after the time pops in that I know that we're actually live. So if you guys do hear us bullshitting in that weird interim, do let me know. That'll allow me to go live a little bit earlier. But as it is, there's this just weird wait that sometimes it's very short. Sometimes it takes fucking forever.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you two doing this evening?
Super duper happy. Because it's Friday.
Nice.
Yeah, it's Friday.
See you guys looking forward to the start of your weekend. I'm looking at the end of mine.
Oh. I saw in chat there you're heading away on or on the title even.
Yep.
You're going on a birthday vacation.
What?
Yep. Going on a birthday vacation, so for the next 2 weeks, I'll end up being overseas. I'm heading out on Wednesday. And from Wednesday to about not that Saturday, but the following Saturday,
Mhm.
I'll be in Northern Europe.
Very nice.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
So, what are you doing up there? Any particular sites you're gonna be checking out?
So, my family has an interesting tradition that is every family member has a different color pin, and we have this map at home in the family home. So, every Christmas or whenever a family member is able to arrive at the family home, they grab their type of pin and they stick it in any locations that they've been to. And there's rules for whether or not you can count going to a country. So, first off, you have to spend at least 24 hours in a non-airport hotel.
Okay.
So,
Fair.
that's one restriction. You
Wait,
have to
a non-airport hotel? Wait,
non-airport hotel.
Does that
So
mean you
sometimes-
actually get into the city?
Yep. Sometimes when you're doing international travel, you might end up with your plane getting delayed and you'll end up having to spend a night in this city or that one in country X. But you'll end up getting put up in an airport hotel. So you aren't actually visiting that country. It's just you're stuck there for a bit and you're at this designated hotel that the airport has to go, sorry, we fucked up your shit. Here, go sleep in a bed rather than on a series of our chairs in the terminal. So you have to spend a night in a non-airport hotel. You have to eat in at least one restaurant while there. So those are the two main rules for whether or not it counts as an actual trip. But if you meet those requirements, if you've spent at least one night and if you've eaten in one hotel, or not one hotel, if you've eaten in one restaurant, then you can put your pin in that country on the map. So
Okay.
various family members have ridiculous leads when it comes to this. Both parents were Marines, so got bumped around a hell of a lot. They have a shit ton of pins all over the map. And my sister has a job that has her traveling constantly, and also has me living in fear anytime that she goes to some place that I want to visit at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Since she has a nasty habit of, if she goes to a country for an extended period of time, either some massive natural disaster will hit that country and fuck it over for a period of time, or there'll be massive destabilization that happens in the country.
Only I'm allowed to visit this place, so you're done, is what she says when she leaves.
Kind of, because when she went to Japan, it was
It's before
at the same
Fukushima.
time Fukushima and that tsunami happened when she was in Japan. She went to Hong Kong, and then while she was in Hong Kong fell. CCP went, fuck it, we're going to completely ignore the peace deal that we had, and we're just going to start enforcing our will. So the Hong Kong protests kicked off, and the CCP started to try to force Hong Kong to become more like mainland. When she went to at least 3 different Middle Eastern countries, that as she was in the Middle Eastern country, the country collapsed. Including, she went to Afghanistan. And that was when everyone in my family went, oh, this is not a good sign. Then right as she left Afghanistan, Afghanistan just collapsed and we gave it to the Taliban again. And we're going, what the fuck is wrong with her? Why is every country that she visits just plagued by some massive issue? So now we're
Are you sure she's not like the embodiment of one of like war, you know?
If she's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, there might be some questions related to that due to how frequently this shit happens. She'll go to a country, be there for a while, everything will go to shit. Either a natural disaster will hit or massive political instability. And it's literally every single country. There was a
has she been to Sweden yet?
I
just asking
remember.
From all the stuff that's been happening there with immigration.
I can't remember. I have a hard time remembering where the hell she's been, because she gets bumped around a hell of a lot.
Oh, I like this one.
And it is literally like when she was in Korea, there was a natural disaster in Korea. And also tension on the DMZ started to mount, and then she left Korea. And then while she was in Japan, tsunami hits Fukushima. And then she goes to another country, that country starts destabilizing. She goes to another country, that country destabilizes. She ends up in Afghanistan, Afghanistan collapses. She goes to another country, and it's just every fucking place that she goes is just completely trashed.
Sangs, my dude, my buddy.
Yep.
These are just patterns. And, you know, humans are, you know, they're monkey brains. You know, yeah, they see patterns and they just want to do patterns, and you know, that's a natural thing, you know, patterns.
Yeah, I still just really want my sister to stay away from all the countries that I actually like. There's certain countries that she can go to. France is always in a state of uprising and rebellion. I mean, people will constantly say, well, France is one of the oldest republics. No, the fuck it isn't. France is one of the youngest republics in Europe.
Well, hold on.
France is on its 6th fucking republic.
Yeah, I was going to say, which kind of funk?
Yeah. as far as I'm concerned, every time that you end up with an additional number in front of your republic fell. It became something else, and then it was replaced by a republic again. France is not one of the oldest republics. France has one of the newest republics, and the way that France looks fairly often is that France is on its way to the 7th.
I think we have strayed off the topic, sir.
No, not entirely, because it's the family map. So my sister has been able to stick a shit ton of pins in the map. My brother has been able to stick a handful, and now every year, or about every year, depending on how things work out, I end up being able to stick a couple pins in the map because I'll travel somewhere on my birthday or around my birthday in order to get an additional pin. So like last year, I got Canada. I had visited Canada, but I hadn't spent 24 hours in a hotel in Canada.
Wait, so you're coming to Canada?
I did that last year.
Oh, last year.
Yep, I went to Windsor because there are a shit ton of breweries and distilleries. So I went and I drank Windsor. And did a bunch of breweries, wineries, and distilleries on the way. Because in order to get to Windsor, I drove through Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, I swear, has the greatest number of breweries, distilleries, and wineries of any single fucking area in the United States. Adam, you got to sample a bit of Wisconsin distillery and winery production.
Are you trying to get me as a stout Illinoisian to...
You know you fucking loved the Wisconsinite mead and cider and
Look,
wine.
I'm not... Okay, you know what? I'm not going to say... you know, I'm not going to say whether this or whether that, but...
You know you enjoyed it, Adam. Don't try to obfuscate. But yeah, on the trip last year, did a road trip up to, like I said, I think it was Windsor that I went to. So hit a bunch of Wisconsin breweries, wineries, distilleries as I was headed towards Windsor. Then stayed in Windsor, drank through a bunch of their breweries and distilleries in Windsor, and then came back drinking through more Wisconsin breweries, distilleries, and wineries.
I mean, as someone who's done the Okanagan wine tour, like I understand. It's that stuff can be fun.
Oh yeah, it was.
I think I would enjoy the whiskey stuff more because unfortunately I am a pleb when it comes to wine. So.
So I have a question because you live in Canada. So
yes.
Do you tend to go for Canadian whiskey?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
My stepfather was Scottish, so no.
Okay. That's the right answer because there's something that...
Do you know I've never had Canadian whiskey? I don't think I've ever had... I don't remember ever tasting Crown.
You know, you've got to have Canadian whiskey. It must have been like added to
probably at like parties when I was a teenager.
But no, yeah, I applaud you for you know, got him, Canada. We got
we lost the host.
We lost the host. Oh shit.
This is ours now. We're taking over. Avast. This is our stream now. Just internally panic. Oh no! I hope he comes back. I have a dog barking, and I need to let him out. And I'm gonna leave you alone.
Shit.
What? Okay, hold on.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
No
panics.
No panics. I am captain now. Look at me. So let's do a recap of what we've been talking about. What have we been talking about? I don't think I can remember. But what I do remember is that um, a fine distinction between whiskeys, and that's a good thing.
I'm back.
Oh,
Sorry about that. You want to know my dog's trick? This is
uh,
Mickey, Michelangelo, the boy dog. So he has
boy,
this thing where he barks in this.
Oh,
Uh, oh,
minute.
he's back!
oh,
Hey!
Hello. Sorry about
sir.
that. My internet had a hiccup.
Well, I picked up the flag and held it up until you respawned.
Good. So, with whiskeys, I talk
Yeah.
about this fairly frequent. I am slightly baffled by Canadian whiskey because there's something that in every other version of whiskey is viewed as a bad thing, and Canada decided, fuck it, this is going to be our hallmark, and we're going to be proud and say that we love it when it comes to Canadian whiskey. And it confuses me every fucking time. Because
Okay.
Canadian whiskeys, we'll talk about the length of finish. So when you are talking about Irish whiskey and Scotch, one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
things that they brag about is that it is water on the tongue and tonsils, and then it'll hit
Yeah.
the stomach, and you'll get that lovely bloom of warmth that just radiates up throughout the body.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, Sanguine. Weren't you talking about it the other day about the distillation of
Yeah,
the
I talked
whiskey?
about it when Donkey was on last time because I was harassing Donkey.
Oh,
So
fucking donkey!
anytime that
Oh
there's a
wait,
Canadian, I have
don't
to
say
give
his
them
name.
some shit about their
Yeah,
whiskey.
yeah.
So Scotch and Irish are very proud about the fact that it's water on the tongue and tonsils. It hits the stomach. You get that lovely bloom, but there's no burn on the tongue. There's no sting of alcohol on the tonsils or in the throat. Canadian whiskey, for some reason, loves their length of finish. And length of finish means that you feel it on the tongue, you feel it on the tonsils, you feel it down the throat, you feel it run all the way down to the stomach. Then you get that bloom, and that bloom will radiate out. And that's their length of finish. So they turn something that is a negative in every other variety of whiskey into the thing that they hang their hat on, that ours burns like shit going down your throat. And you should fucking enjoy it.
I mean, Canadian whiskey.
And it comes down to the level of distillation, because Irish whiskey, it becomes smooth due to triple distillation. And then with Scotch whiskey, it's double distillation, but a longer age. With American whiskey, it tends to be double distillation, but not as long aged as Scotch. You can find longer aged American whiskeys, and those tend to be the really smooth American whiskeys.
You know, I'm not a really big fan of bourbons myself. The sweetened taste on the whiskey is it's
Well,
not
it
my
depends
preference.
on the bourbon that you had, because you really enjoyed the Buffalo Trace.
Well, you you might also have been mistaken because I also enjoy a lot of uh
I enjoy a lot of things that I don't
I
really
mean,
like all
when
that
you
much, but when it's in my cup, woo!
you hand me a drink, sir, I might say, "Woo, sir." It's very nice. But I wouldn't go out of my way to purchase it. That's my stance on that.
Yeah, with the higher quality bourbons, you'll tend to see that they're aged longer, and they'll get up into the Scotch level of aging.
Oh, hold on, Japanese whiskey. Yes, I've seen that, and that is very tasty. I might go pick up. I'm gonna go tomorrow. There's a Japanese marketplace out in Chicagoland area, I'm gonna
Ooh, I
go
like
take a
those.
stop out there.
That's
So
nice.
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of different Japanese whiskeys now. Originally, all the Japanese whiskeys that I had tried were the harshest whiskeys that I have ever had.
It's very dry.
It depends on the Japanese whiskey. So I originally had a Japanese whiskey that I was recommended by someone while I was in Japan. That was what they were describing as kind of the Jameson, where it's a really good quality per price. It isn't the fancy whiskey that you would go for, but it's the whiskey that would be your daily driver, where you'd have a finger
Daily
of that
driver?
whiskey. Yeah, daily driver. That's the drink that you'd have a finger of fairly
How much do you
frequently.
pay?
Well, for Jameson, a standard 75.
Don't laugh at that, sir. That's
Right,
bad. That was a
750.
bad joke.
A standard 750 is 20 something. Same with Whistler. So those are good daily drivers, really good quality per price point. Whereas when you're talking about more expensive whiskeys, you aren't going to drink a Athru as your daily whiskey unless you make a fuck ton of money. Because Athru is a $120 bottle of whiskey.
I think when you get to that point, that's when you're pouring it into very fancy glasses, various shapes, and then I mean it doesn't even have like a label, so it's Bond level, right? Or Bond villain label. Um,
Well, considering that I'm currently looking at my collection of Glencairn and snifters, also my whiskey glasses that actually have all of the chemical compositions
hold on.
that are in whiskey as the
WR
flavoring
Crossan
compound.
said, "Is Mr. Adam evil?" Maybe I am because I want that.
You went Bond villain immediately.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, I just enjoyed nice whiskey. So I have expensive whiskeys, I have cheap whiskeys that are good flavor. But you have different price points. So I'd say up to about 40, you're in that daily driver sort of whiskey. The whiskey that you want a good whiskey, but you don't want to break the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this whiskey and you'll have it frequently. It'll be the whiskey that if you're making a whiskey cocktail, you'll reach for this whiskey. That's what I consider the daily driver. It's not expensive.
It's white girl wasted whiskey.
Say again?
It's white girl wasted whiskey.
It can be, yes. But it's not quite the... So a lot of the main white girl wasted whiskeys will be the well whiskeys. Well whiskeys are much cheaper than the ones that I'm talking about.
Ah.
Well, will do.
So I'm talking about the ones that you can drink neat without any issue. They have a nice flavor.
On. There's no way these drunk girl wait.
White girl
They're not wasted.
They're not drinking it straight or neat.
No, but I'm saying that the whiskeys that I'm talking about are the ones that you can drink neat.
Yeah, they're drinking
as
Coke.
You can drink them mixed.
It's got to be
or
flavored.
on the rocks.
Well, I don't know, man. Dude, look, it's all aliens. I mean, you people are...
You can make a Jameson cocktail and not feel like you're pissing away really good whiskey.
I don't know. And you know what? I guess I'm just an old fashioned. Boop, 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 boop.
And you can make a Jameson old fashioned and not feel like you're pissing away.
Yeah.
Your good whiskey. Whereas if you're asking for like an Ardbeg cocktail, what the fuck are you doing? Drink Ardbeg straight. Drink it neat. Maybe on the rocks, especially if you have whiskey stone so it doesn't water it down, it just chills it nicely. Yeah, go for an Ardbeg. Go for a Lafroig. Like, we were talking about my...
Oh, yeah, frozen rocks would be pretty good.
Yeah, we were talking about my whiskey, was it last week, Adam? When I said that I found out that I have a $1,000 bottle, I did a Harry.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah, I have a Very old bottle of Lafroig. So it's an Islay, very smoky, very peaty, absolutely delicious bottle of whiskey. Turns out that bottle of whiskey with that aging is no longer in current production. So,
but how did it taste?
Oh, it's fucking amazing.
There you go.
It is smooth as water on the tongue and tonsils, and it is nice and smoky, deep, rich flavor. So if you like a peated whiskey, it's a delicious fucking whiskey. But like I said, you have your low-level whiskeys that you'll only ever use them for like a mixed drink. And even then, it's a mixed drink where it isn't a whiskey-forward mixed drink. You kind of try to hide the liquor. Then you have your optimal price per quality whiskeys. Those would be your Jamesons, your Whistlers, and that sort of brew, where you could drink it straight and it would be good. Or you could drink it on the rocks, you could mix it, and you don't feel like you're ruining your whiskey, regardless of how you have it.
That's good. That's nice. You know, that's like a good.
Yeah, like I said, it's a
standard.
It's a daily driver, as it were. The one that, when you're just going, I could use a drink after work, that'll be the one that you pour. Whereas the ones that are a higher tier, where it's quality whiskey, and everything from this is a good whiskey and up, you end up being less and less willing to mix. Because if you're just mixing a drink and you're using the Lafroig that I just mentioned, which is $1,000 bottle, you feel like you're pissing away the money, and you aren't getting that much better of a drink than if you used a lower quality whiskey in that same mixed drink. Whereas if you drink it straight, you feel like you're getting a much better quality whiskey. So the Japanese whiskeys that I had, the first one, I was recommended one that was supposed to be a daily driver. It was the harshest shit that I've ever consumed. It was ground glass in gasoline.
Jesus.
It was a Suntory 3-year. Ridiculously harsh. Did not like it at all. I tried to doctor it up. There's a few things that you can do to doctor whiskey. One of them is that you do effectively a whiskey tea, and that can cut the harshness. You put some tea bags in whiskey. The flavor of the tea seeps out into the whiskey. You end up with a fairly strong tea-flavored beverage.
That sounds actually really nice. I would like to try that.
Extremely alcoholic. Yeah, it is fantastic, and it's good if you have either a lower grade of whiskey or, like I said, for a daily driver. Like if you do that with Jameson, you aren't ruining your Jameson. You're just ending up with this really nice, strongly tea-flavored drink. So it's fantastic. So I tried doing that with that Japanese whiskey. Did not save it. The rest of the time that I had that bottle of whiskey, it was my antiseptic.
Yeah, that would clean things.
Yeah, I used it to clean things. That was it. But since then, I've had a bunch of other Japanese whiskeys, and while they are a bit harsher than their on par Irish and Scotch, they are rather lovely. So one that you can get, at least in the US, fairly easily is by the name of Kaigan. Kaigan whiskey is rather lovely. Another one that is fantastic is Harazaki Small Batch. So Kaigan is in like the $35 range. Bit more expensive than a Jameson. Not terribly much so. And in some ways it has a slightly nicer flavor. In other ways it has a slightly worse flavor. On the whole, I'd say it balances to about a Jameson. Or a Whistler for a similar price point whiskey. Then you have Harazaki Small Batch, which that's up in the 70s. And Adam, it says a device tried to connect but failed. Okay, there we go. It went away. I can add you back in. So, Harazaki Small Batch, another really, it's a tasty Japanese whiskey that is a bit light, and it's a Mizunara aged whiskey. So Mizunara is a type of Japanese oak. Adam's connection keeps on trying to connect a device that it doesn't want to allow the device to connect.
Are they, is this harshness? Hey, he's back.
Hello.
Sorry.
Are these,
my apologies. I was no, no, that 100% my apologies. I didn't mean to disrupt the conversation. I was gonna go and try and check out this toaster, but yeah, I get.
But the toaster didn't want to connect to the StreamYards?
Well, there's buttons hidden and hidden buttons, and but yeah, I'll be right back.
Not a problem. So you were saying, Sora?
Is the harshness? Is it just because they're still fine? Is that more of in line with the Japanese taste, or is it learning pains? I guess growing pains for the whiskey.
So with the little bit of harshness, it's that they do an aging that is between the Irish and Scotch. So Irish whiskeys, the youngest Irish whiskey that you can find is 3 years and a day. Because in Ireland, in order for it to be categorized as Irish whiskey, it has to be aged a minimum of 3 years. So because it's a minimum of 3 years, in order to be safe about it every time, they'll age it for 3 years, they'll let it go another day, then they'll bottle. So you get 3 years and a day aging. For Scotch, it's a minimum of 5 years. A lot of Scotches take it past that, just like a lot of Irish whiskeys will take it past the 3-year minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with 5 year and a day aging for Scotches. Japanese whiskey, a good chunk of it is 4 year and a day. And there's two different things that you can do in order to make a whiskey smoother. You can distill a whiskey more. So you'll see alcohols that are single distilled, double distilled, triple distilled, for instance. And you can go higher than that. So Irish whiskeys are all triple distilled, which means that they'll get the alcohol started going, they'll ferment it, then after they ferment it, they'll distill it once, which reduces the amount of volume that they have because it boils off the contaminating alcohols, the contaminating volatiles. Those go out, then it boils off the whiskey, and then there's water. But throughout the entire process, it's boiling different percentages. It's always, as the entire solution's boiling, it's boiling everything that's in that. It's just the concentration, what percentage of that is each compound, shifts throughout the distillation. So you'll start with very high, more volatile alcohol concentration, a little bit of ethanol concentration, and then a little bit of water. And then as you boil past that first distillate, which is discarded or sold off as like medical grade methanol and various other alcohols.
Best kind of alcohol.
Causes you to go blind and poisons the body unless... Do you know what the treatment is for methanol poisoning?
No.
Because
probably have looked that up in high school, but never did.
There's a very simple treatment for methanol poisoning. Get piss drunk.
Oh, so basically, is it force your body to process it, or what?
Close. So methanol in your body is actually not poisonous.
Okay.
But methanol has 2 levels of processing by the liver. So the first level goes from methanol to methanoic acid. Methanoic acid is a formaldehyde agonist. I think it's agonist. I'm always end up confusing agonist and antagonist. I see Skep in the chat. Skep, am I right in remembering agonist is the clone, antagonist blocks? I think that's the right way around it. But so if I'm
No, I think antagonist was the villain in Scarlet Witch.
Antagonist is the villain, and in chemical terms, the antagonist, if I remember correctly, blocks the receptor site for something. So if something is an agonist, then it's a near enough clone that it's treated the same. If something's an antagonist, it blocks. So, at least if I remember correctly, like I said, I saw Skep in there, so Skep will probably remember.
Oh, hey, Skep.
And if he's able to chime in that, yep, it's the agonist is the one that's a near clone. Fantastic. But methanoic acid ends up being treated in the body like a bit of formaldehyde. So it ends up preserving and fixing the particular part of the body that it goes into, which is why if you drink high methanol contamination or methanol straight, you end up going blind because it fixes the cells of your eyes. And when the cells of your eyes are fixed, it means that they stop doing anything. They just don't rot. So you have methanol gets processed by the liver once, becomes methanoic acid, gets processed by the liver again, and then it can either be drained from the body while it's methanol, or it can be drained from the body after that second processing where it goes from methanoic acid to, I can't remember the second process, but it becomes a different chemical compound during the second processing by the liver. But while it's in that methanoic acid, that first process of the liver, it fucks with the body, and it fucks with the body savagely. It'll screw with your neurons, it'll screw with your eyes, it'll screw with your sense of smell.
Oof.
Everything gets fucked.
Dude.
And yeah, it does sound like it's the opposite of fixing your eyes, but the same term is used. There's when you smell formaldehyde straight, you end up having your nasal bulb, your olfactory bulb, fixed, and it means that you become anosmic for a period of time until it wears off, and then those cells are replaced. Anosmic meaning that you can't smell. So, in order for it to do that damage, it has to get processed by the liver. But the same catalysts that process methanol into methanoic acid process ethanol. And they prefer to process ethanol. So if you drink methanol and you realize it fast enough, just hammer a high-proof alcohol. Down a fair bit of it. Get piss drunk. Because then your liver will be busy dealing with the ethanol that you've just pumped into your system, preventing it from processing the methanol. So the methanol doesn't transfer into methanoic acid. Since it doesn't go into methanoic acid, it doesn't cause the damage to your body, and it's able to just be pissed out of your system without any harm. So the treatment to methanol poisoning, and really the treatment to most improper alcohol poisonings, so isopropanol, methanol, and a series of others, it's you get blitzed. You just grab a standard potable alcohol and you down it. The ethanol ends up competing with the methanol, and it gets preferential treatment by the catalyst. So it gets broken down. The methanol just gets pissed out of your body. It's a really strange bit of chemistry. I fucking love it.
Very
or
interesting.
Biochemistry. But with the whiskeys, like I said, Irish are 3 years in a day. Scotch are 5 years and a day. That longer aging of Scotch, even though Scotch is a double distilled, creates a very smooth alcohol. The longer you age, the smoother it gets. The more you distill, the smoother it gets. So you can have a fewer number of distillations, which every time that you distill, you end up with less of the final product, which is why people don't like distilling too much. But also, as you age, you end up getting less of the final product. And I'm going to be going to Northern Europe's quiz, so I'm going to have fun putzing around in, like, Denmark and the surrounding area.
Ooh.
I want to visit.
Oh, it'll be
eventually.
Fun. But
that'll be nice.
With Japanese whiskey, they go for a double distillation like Scotch, but then a lot of them are aged. Like I said, I think it's 4 years and a day is the minimum for Japanese whiskey. So it ends up harsher than Scotch and harsher than Irish because it's less distilled than Irish, but less aged than Scotch. But if you have a better aged, or some Japanese whiskeys are more distilled, then you get a finer flavor to the whiskey. So the ones that I like I said, are Kaigan, a little bit harsh, but really pleasant flavor, really nice belly bloom, and the harshness isn't so much a burn in the tongue, taste buds, and lips. It's more of I know, Sora, you've said that you've had Szechuan food before, right?
Yes.
Adam, you've had Szechuan food, and if you haven't had Szechuan food normal, you had the chili crisp meals that I made at the campsite. You know that slight numbness that the spice of that gave? And the numbness of Szechuan food as well. So both of you can answer that you are familiar with the numbness that I'm talking about. A whiskey like Kaigan, the young Kaigans, or the Harazaki small batch will give that sort of tingle rather than a burn as you drink them.
That's interesting.
And it's
I don't know if I've ever tried something like that before.
Yeah,
at least not that I remember.
Because of the volatile alcohols within it still. That weren't aged out, nor were they distilled out, which is also the reason why Canadian whiskey has that length of finish that they like to talk about. They have more of those unprocessed volatile alcohols, and those do actually cause a burn. But that's because Canadian whiskey is a mixture of single distilled flavoring alcohols and double distilled.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, Canadian whiskey mixes single distilled and double distilled.
And hold on, I was muted the whole time. I had responses. Son of a bitch. I mean, son of a gun. I'm sorry. This is a family show. Minions of the Zoo.
Totally.
Yeah,
well,
we are not.
Yeah. I mean, well, for the most part, I mean, it is late for.
We're teenagers and up.
Yeah. So wait, what was the question?
So you remember the chili crisp dishes that I made at the campsite where they had that slight numbness to like your lips and tip of your tongue?
Oh yeah, the spice.
Yep, that's from in the chili crisp. It uses Szechuan peppercorn, which has a mild anesthetic effect, which causes that numbness.
I mean, that's very colorful words for. But yeah, it was tasty. Yeah.
Yeah. So volatiles in lesser distilled whiskeys can also have that effect. Japanese whiskeys, at least the young Japanese whiskeys, do have that kind of numbness at the tip of your tongue and bit of your lips.
I agree.
So,
Yes, and you can taste it,
yep,
especially when you if you have a little shot of it and you slowly sip it. Yep,
yep,
you can taste it. I
yep.
agree, sir.
You can get that numbness, and it is definitely there, which is because, like I said, it's double distilled, but only 4 year and a day aging. You get older ones, you get less of that numbness.
See, you missed all the stuff that I had uh blocked, but it was all yeah. But no, yeah, and we gotta try some, and you too, sir.
Yep.
Hmm.
And the ones that I really enjoy are, like I said, Kaigan's really good. Has a little bit of that numbness. Normally, that one hits very corner of your mouth and tip of your tongue. Then there's Hatazaki Small Batch. That gets kind of more middle of your lip. Will get a little bit of that numbness, and then it's the side of your tongue. But very nice flavor to that. And that one's a Mizunara, so you get the Mizunara oak, which is very traditional for Japanese whiskeys. It's a Japanese species of oak. And then you have another one that I highly recommend is Sadashi. And Sadashi is in kind of that Jameson price point, a little bit more expensive because it's $35 per bottle where I am versus like 20 something dollars per bottle. It has a very pleasant flavor though. So those would be three Japanese whiskeys that I can easily recommend.
I'll have to
That's
look. I wonder if where I'm assuming more like specialty liquor stores would have them, like the private ones here. It'd be interesting to take a look.
Yeah, up there, I'm not sure where you could go to find them. I know that where I am, I go to Total Wine and More in order to find my Japanese whiskeys because they have a massive selection, and I fucking love their selection.
Like the BC
yeah.
liquor store has a good international, like in general selection, definitely for wines, but I don't know about for any other spirits.
Ah,
But usually like for if you want to do and I'm not well versed in sake, but I was at a tasting once and they told us for the proper ones, the fresh ones that are brought in, there's only a few privately owned places that actually take them in because they're expensive to import. So
Ooh.
you can find sake everywhere, but if you want the good stuff, like the proper ones that,
If you want that good stuff.
yeah,
Um,
like with most things, you don't go too commercial.
out here in Chicagoland area, there's a place called Mitsua, and um, I think it's Arlington Heights, which is where there's a larger Japanese community, and there is a grocery shop that grandma, uh, that yeah, they supply groceries for the Japanese community, and
mm-hmm,
that's where you can find very good sake.
Hmm.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I get my sake a lot at Total Wine and More as well because, like I said, Total Wine and More just has an absolutely ridiculous selection, which is fantastic. So I'm able to get some nice quality sakes, whiskeys, and various other alcohols without too much fuss. Also, there's one thing that I recommend everyone finds if they want to get more into trying different types of alcohol. Find a place that has an employee that you trust the recommendations of. Because the reason why I go to Total Wine and More is there's this one guy at the Total Wine and More that I go to. That if I go Fridays in the morning, he's there. Kind of short little ginger guy. if I ask him any question about any of the alcohols that I'm interested in, he'll have a recommendation. And the man has not steered me wrong about any of his recommendations thus far. So that's one of the reasons why I go there, just because they have that dude that is able to give me the recommendation. Whereas if I had another store, even if it didn't have quite the same selection, but it had someone that I could go, okay, look, I want to try another rum that's like this rum and that rum. And they were able to go, oh, yeah, try this one, or this one. Those three would probably be in that same flavor palette that you're looking for. I would probably go to that place a lot more. But with the Total Wine and More near me, the one dude, every single time that I go, like, hey, I want to try another rum that's like this one, he gives me another rum. It is like the one that I asked about. It's fantastic. Or he'll see me looking at the Irish whiskeys and he'll go, are you looking for a new one today or going to grab one of your normal ones? And if I say I'm looking for a new one, he'll go, I highly recommend this one. I had a little bit of it. It was fantastic. You'd probably really enjoy it. I'll grab it. Sure enough, that shit becomes one of my normals.
That's nice. Yeah. Well, he's good at his job. That's good.
Yeah. It's one of those things that there's certain types of stores that you want to have knowledgeable staff. When it comes to alcohol, having staff that is really knowledgeable about the alcohol and is able to go, oh yeah, this alcohol is like that alcohol, so let me give you a recommendation. Mm-hmm. Oh, Strong Zero. Yeah, that's a Japanese alcohol that normally sold in a can. Various fruit flavors. It's a fortified alcohol drink in Japan. I haven't had Strong Zero. I'm interested in trying Strong Zero the next time that I go overseas to Japan, but a lot of Japanese drinks I really enjoy. Like I said, originally I had a bit of a problem with Japanese whiskey. I've since found Japanese whiskeys that are really, really nice. But alcohol stores definitely need knowledgeable staff. I'd say computer appliances, or computer and appliance stores, rather. So tech stores and appliances. You definitely want people that know their shit about what they're talking about. A computer store, that way they can either recommend the appropriate PC if they have a pre-built that is up the customer's need, or is right what the customer needs, or being able to go, oh, you have this type of processor, that type of motherboard. Okay, I recommend that you go for this type of graphics card because it works really well with those parts. You need someone that knows the parts.
Yeah.
And appliances, same thing, where...
Yeah, you need basically an expert in their field, someone.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that, you know, in alcohol it would be the same.
Yep. And that's the type of thing that really gets people coming back to a store. Because if you don't have that, a selection will get people to come back, but it'll be more of a, well, if I'm looking for something outside of my normal liquor store, then I'll go there. But if you have a wider selection and you have people that go, here's what you'd probably be interested in, let me give you some recommendations. That's when people will go, yep, every time I'm looking for this, I'm going to go
there. That sounds like a interesting story.
Yeah, like I said, that one guy at the liquor store is one of the reasons why I tend to default to going to that Total Wine and More versus any of the other liquor stores in the area. Because I can reliably get recommendations on alcohols if I'm interested in them. And that can save me some serious cash from time to time.
Oh shit!
Since he won't pull his punches if it's an expensive bottle, he'll go, okay, that one, I'm not sure that you would like it. It has this sort of flavor profile. This one I know that you would like. Or this one if you want something a little bit cheaper. So he'll give me options, and it has saved me from buying some expensive bottles that then later on I'll be at like a bar and I'll go, oh, it has this one. Let me give it a taste, because buying a shot of it and trying it that way kind of safe a good chunk of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time when he's gone, I'm not sure that you would be interested in that. If I've tried it later, I'm going, yeah, nah, fuck this.
Gee.
So he has saved me money in that respect, which is nice.
Yeah, because alcohol is expensive and you get a lot of it. So if you don't like the bottle that you get, then you're kind of stuck with it.
Yep.
And there's only so many types of alcohol you can bake with, for example, or cook with. It's, like, okay, say you open a shitty bottle of red wine. Well, at least you can cook with it, you know? But same with, it's rum, you don't like it, it's okay, bake it.
Yep.
Put it in a cake. Put it in a sauce. But with other, whiskey, same thing. You could probably do
But even then,
nice
there's a
glaze
certain
with it.
price point that you'd be willing to do that with.
Well, exactly.
Because-
Like if you pay close to $100 or something for your bottle of alcohol, and it's
you aren't
terrible.
going to want to bake with it. You're going to be going, well, I just wasted $100. Fuck this.
You'll be so mad that you throw
Whereas
the bottle
if it's
away.
like you're buying a $12 bottle of wine and you're going, this is not the flavor that I want. Yeah, you go, okay, next time that I'm making spaghetti, I'll pour a bit of this into it.
So I remember like many, many years ago. So I was visiting my friend who was studying in Montreal, and at that time they sold wine in grocery stores in Montreal. So like any civilized city. And so we go there, and of course we're all students. So her boyfriend's like, I'm gonna choose, like, we should have some wine with our dinner. Like, great, yeah, let's get some wine. I know the best one, I'll get it. And it was like, $10, but $10 doesn't mean anything. It could still be a good bottle of wine, right? Like a house red, right? And again, I say, I'm not a big person for wine, but like you can tell when you're drinking good wine and when you're not drinking good wine. Like, even if you have no palate for it. And one of her good friends, one of her roommates, my friend's roommates, was actually an exchange student from Paris. So she knew her wines, at least for the table wines. So here we are. We open this cork up the bottle, pour it in, and it's literally. So if you've ever tasted, like, so say you have a little bit of red wine left in your glass, and you pour water over it to clean out the glass, and then you take a swig of that water.
Oh, watered wine.
That's what it tastes like, but like not even water. Like it was like the hint, the essence of wine.
Someone washed out the wine barrel afterwards and decided.
Yeah, and then whatever the leftover drippings. And of course, I'm completely laughing. I said, this is the worst wine ever. Holy shit. And then the Frenchie, who's the real Frenchie, she was losing her mind and she was insulted. Yep. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, come on. Why? And I don't even remember what kind of wine it was. And I think I ended up offending him so badly, saying something like, why didn't you just get like Airfoot or something, or the box wine where it's terrible, you expect it to be terrible, but here he was going like, I know this is a special like niche wine, this would be so good, but it was terrible. It was so bad. Made it for a great trip though. Yeah,
it's always, like I said, it's frustrating when you get a expensive bottle and you find out this is shit. Fuck this shit. Because I've done that with bottles of alcohol. I have the worst Irish whiskey that I have on my cart. It's maybe 25% gone because I'll only take a finger of it after I've had, like, if I'm having a night where I'm drinking with friends, or I have a night where I'm just like, okay, I want to unwind, so I'll be drinking whiskey for a while, not getting pissed because I don't get drunk, but just I'm going to be drinking a fair few fingers of whiskey. Then I'll do like 3-4 fingers of Jameson and then a finger of this, hoping it's killed my taste buds enough that I can't taste it. And it never has.
Oh.
It is the most depressing whiskey on my cart. Because, again, it's an Irish whiskey. I enjoy Irish whiskeys. I love Irish whiskeys. And this one I had hopes for, because it's one of the older North Irish distilleries. But something about this whiskey, they fucked up. They hated their ancestors when they made this bottle of whiskey. That's the only way that I can explain it, because it took everything that is lovely about an Irish whiskey and they went, fuck it. It has a very strong mouthfeel. It has minimal belly bloom to burn. It is unbelievably depressing. So I just leave it on my booze cart because I can only ever stomach a finger of it at a time. And even then, only when I've had a few fingers of something else will I even be vaguely willing to pour a finger of it. But I have a shit ton of others. I have Dublin Liberties. That's fantastic. I have Egan's, let's see, which one is this? The Egan's Endeavour. That one's fantastic. I have Athro. Athro is an expensive bottle of whiskey, but it's a fucking delicious bottle of whiskey. I have Writer's Tears, Double Oaked, and the Kettle, or the Copper Kettle. I have a bunch of others. All of them amazing. That one, shit. I have Penderyn. It's a Welsh whiskey. That one's fantastic. But that bottle, every time that I look down at it, I get pissed off that I bought that bottle. And it wasn't even, like, fantastically expensive. It wasn't one of the, like, $100 plus bottles of whiskey. But it's like a $70 bottle of whiskey that I cannot stand.
Mm-hmm. And you're stuck with it.
Yeah. I'm stuck with it, trying to come up with ways to make it potable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wine folks can be really snobby. But if you find the right wine, wines are delicious. You just have to find the right one for you. That was in response to Rotten Corpse and him saying that he never really dabbled in wine because he found wine people fairly snobby.
What you need to do is you have to go somewhere where they do like winery tours, and go with friends, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
Also, most of the time those are not pretentious, so.
Also, if you aren't the one driving and you're just going on winery tours, fuck it, have fun. Don't spit that shit out. Just gulp it down.
Just make sure you drink some water.
Yeah, for those who don't know, on winery tours, normally you take a sip, you swish it, you spit. But, okay.
No, yeah, you go ahead.
No, you first.
I always say don't spit that thing out. It just, and it depends on where you go. Sometimes it's so little that it feels like, because you pay money for sometimes for these tours, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, and it's not like you buy. You're not buying by the bottle, right? Usually, if you like something, you have to buy by the case, right? Or at
Mm-hmm.
least here they do. So the way I see it is, if you're not willing or have the budget to buy like a case of wine, okay, you just drink the samples.
And I do have to ask, Sora,
Mhm.
depending on where you're going, don't spit that out. Which number is that one?
Oh, that's from the compilation.
Okay.
There's multiple parts.
Also, Inquisitor wants to know, it's so little. Which number?
The I don't know. I think that has to go into the insult category ones. I have to start a new category. There we go.
The degradation.
Yeah.
And he also claims, it's a decent size, Sora.
No comment.
It's one of those things that it's fun exploring different types of alcohol. It sucks when you find one that sucks and you spent money on it.
That happened to me. So during the summer here, we have the farmer markets, and usually they'll have somebody will come in and do like artisan something. So it could be mead, gin, and for some reason, and they're allowed to give samples. So, as long as you show ID, they will give you a sample. For some reason, these mead guys did not have
samplers.
Yeah, and
Was
I
it the
said,
too sweet? Was it a dessert mead
no,
rather than
it was not even. It's not even a proper mead. Like it was basically a cider beer. Like it did taste right, and then I got the ones they had. It was like different flavors and distillations added to it to give it a taste. They all had the same taste, and I'm like, okay, maybe, And I tried the whole thing of making sure I have no other taste in my mouth, and like I'm like you're, unless it's so unbelievably subtle, and my taste buds are beyond dead, and I have no sense of smell. There's no difference between any of these. And it's like you pay about $30 something for 4 cans. It's not cheap because it's artisan and whatever. And I'm like, okay, no. I ended up it went down the drain. I opened all of them. I opened all of them just to say like, okay, they were not bad, so they had not gone bad. It's just it was not great, and I feel like they wasted. The art and the stylization of the cans was very nice. And I'm like, I feel like they went more for style or for substance.
Yeah.
Sadly.
It's a shame because when a mead is done well, oh good God, meads are delicious. And there's a bunch of different styles because you don't have to just go for small or sack mead. So for those who don't know the nomenclature, a small mead is a mead with an ABV of less than 12%. That's considered a small mead. It's a mead that you would be able to drink. Some people will call it a session mead, but the proper nomenclature, at least historically, was a small mead. Then meads of 12 and higher, those are sack, show, or grand meads. But then you have a bunch of other different types of meads. So you have braggots, which are hopped meads. You have sicers, which are the bastard child of cider and mead. You have melomels, which use typically deep red to black berries. You have black meads, use black currants or blackberries. And you have a bunch of other different types of mead as well. So you have metheglins, as well. Metheglins tend to be spiced or herbed meads. So a bunch of different types. Shit ton, including there's a capsaicin, which is a mead that uses capsaicin, chili peppers.
Nice.
And those can be spicy, but delicious.
Very nice. Yeah. That's why it's a shame when you get, I don't know, improperly made, or you don't want to like say anything because it's like they're young guys and they're obviously passionate about what they're doing, and it's just like try better.
Yeah. So there's a question of if I have any good recipes that I made for dinner. Constantly. I had just last night, so rather just tonight, no, because it's still before midnight. I had absolutely delicious chicken breast that I did with a pan sauce. That was a red wine vinegar pan sauce with a bit of a demi-glaze going. Bacon, mushrooms in the sauce, really nice, earthy, deep, rich flavor. A salad with some sliced red grapes thrown in, and garlic bread. And I did all of that with a drink of dragon's milk. I've told you guys about dragon's milk, I think, before, right?
I'm not sure. It's not familiar with me.
Milk is a line of beers by New Belgium. I think it's New Belgium. Let me quickly double check which brewery it is. But I want to say it's New Belgium. It might be wrong. Why can't I see it on that one? Let me see on one of my other containers of dragon's milk. But it's most dragon's milk are their mainline dragon's milk. So their mainline dragon's milk are just milk stouts. They use milk sugars, adds a nice creamy thickness to the beer. Also a added bit of sweetness. Then they have their Dragon's Milk Reserve that comes out it comes out every year. There's 4 different reserves normally. So one of their recent reserves was their S'mores Reserve. So it has a marshmallow, chocolate, and graham flour flavor. Really nice, pleasant, thick, rich, creamy beer. Delicious. Then they just came out with 2 additional offerings. So there's now Dragon's Milk Crimson Keep, which is a milk red ale. Because they're still using milk sugars. But now they did a bourbon barrel aged red ale, which is amazing. And have you had red ales before, Sar?
I have.
So,
yes.
For those who don't know, red ales are a type of beer that originated at least partially from Ireland, because there's also Flemish red, which is different. Flemish red is a sour red ale, but the red ale and American red ale are Irish style red ales, and nice deep malty beer, but it's not anywhere near as heavy as a stout or porter or anything like that. It has this deep amber color, hence the name red ale. And this one is a milk sugar one, so it has a little bit extra sweetness, a little bit of creamy texture to it, while still being this beautifully amber color. Really pleasant. And they also did a Tales of Gold, which is their golden ale, again with milk sugars. So you still get that sweetness, you still get that creaminess, but this time it's more like a American lager.
Mhm.
I will say that I absolutely prefer this version of an American lager to most American lagers, and they did not succeed to the same degree as Guinness did when Guinness did its Guinness Gold, because Guinness Gold was absolutely an American lager, and by that I mean it was absolute piss water. This one did not succeed to replicate the American lager standard. It is not piss water. It is very flavorful, nice flavor to it. So, if you want something that kind of has that lightness of an American lager, but you don't want to taste the result of an alcoholic's nocturnal emissions, then I recommend going for a Dragon's Milk Gold Ale. Because it is rather lovely. And it's one of those that slightly confuses me, just like how Asiatic beers confuse me. Because Asiatic beers, they look like they should be really weak flavors. They look like they shouldn't have much to them, but like Asahi's, Tsingtals, Sapporos,
They're
Hadachino's, Ness.
quite tasty.
Very nice flavor. Very tasty. New Holland Brewery. Yeah, I think it is New Holland Brewery. That's the one that I was trying to remember. Let me quickly double check that I am thinking the right company did Dragon's Milk. It might have been spun off since, but I want to say I used to always see New Holland Brewery on every bottle of Dragon's Milk. And I've been a big fan of Dragon's Milk for pretty much as long as I can drink, and ever since I found out about it. It is delicious. Their milk stouts, they're rich, they're creamy, they have a nice body to them. They don't... So some people say that Guinness is too much like liquid bread and it sits heavy in their stomach.
Mm-hmm.
You get the same mouthfeel from a Dragon's Milk as you do from a Guinness, but it doesn't sit as heavy in the stomach. And it has that nice creaminess. The only thing is that if you're lactose intolerant, you can't drink Dragon's Milk because the milk sugars that they're talking about are lactose.
Sad.
Okay, it is a New Holland. I thought that it was New Holland. Yep, it is New Holland. So they do a bunch of different types of Dragon's Milk. I absolutely love the various Dragon's Milks that I've had. I haven't had a bad Dragon's Milk yet. Also, one of the really nice things is that the reserve beers are all designed to be cellared. Have you ever heard of a cellared beer before, Sora?
I have not.
So, cellared beers are rather interesting. A cellared beer is a beer that is designed, once you purchase it, to just leave it in a somewhat cool, dark environment for an extended period of time. And as it ages, the flavor changes. So, for instance, I have one of the previous Dragon's Milk reserves from this year. I just went to the Dragon's Milk website so I could see which reserve I have. So I have both the S'mores, which is the current reserve offering. In October, they're going to be coming out with the oatmeal cookie.
Oh, very nice.
And I have their January one, which was the coffee chocolate, which when I had the first one, it was fairly coffee forward with that bitterness to it. Then I let it age for half a year. and the bitterness of the coffee started to mellow, and it went more towards that creamy with a bitter and still the coffee note over top of the chocolate. So it became more mocha flavored as it aged in that 6 months. And then you give it a little bit longer, and it will continue to develop the flavor. Another one that I had that was fantastic was MotZ did a raspberry porter, which when you first had it, and it was a fresh bottle of the MotZ raspberry porter, it was very vibrant, fruity flavor to the stout, or to the porter. Porter is a type of stout, really. It's just a darker, longer shelf life stout. So it had this really fruity flavor. As it aged, that flavor darkened. It still had that raspberry flavor, but rather than it being this bright, fresh raspberry, it was more like the almost candied raspberry that has matured in flavor, so it's this deeper, darker notes. The malts really came out to play a bit more, giving it a bit more of a chocolate raspberry flavor. It was fantastic. Yeah, it would be kind of cool to do something with this for one of the minion meetups, where we just get a bunch of cellarable beers, stick them in, or we get a bunch, we have one each that year, then we stick them in the cellar for a year. The next year, we bring those out, we crack them open again.
I like that idea. It's like a time capsule, but drinkable. Very nice.
And each year we'd be able to compare the flavor. Also, like I said, you can age these for an extended period of time. So like the MotZ, they have on the back of the MotZ bottle the fresh flavor profile, the 1 month, the 2 month, 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, 18, 24, 36. All broken out how the flavor changes throughout the beer and how it should be changing throughout the beer, which is really fucking cool when a beer company does that. Yeah, we can absolutely do that next year, where we go out, find a good cellarable beer, buy a couple 6-packs of it so that we can each crack one open that year and then let them age and crack them open the next. I love cellaring beers. The flavor that you get out of certain ones, unbelievable. But you have to get the right sort of beers, because there's certain ones that are designed to be cellared. Other beers, cellaring them doesn't really do anything. So there's an artistry to making a beer that should be cellared. And I just pulled up, like I said, the Dragon's Milk listing. And there's a couple Dragon's Milk that I'm now going to need to be on the search for, since Dragon's Milk apparently did a triple mash beer that they have out. And it's a once a year limited run.
Then they have like a special Christmas one type of thing.
Yep, so they have their triple mash, which is once a year. Like I said, they have 3 to 4 reserves that they'll release throughout the year. Then they have Dragon's Milk, their bog standard. Now they have Crimson Keep, which is their red. They have Tales of Gold, which is their golden ale. They also did a white stout, which was, oh good God, that one was amazing when it was out. Because it confused the shit. Yeah, it was confusing as fuck when you drank it.
Because it's like, usually white's like a Hefeweizen, like a wheat beer.
Yep. So it looked like it was supposed to be this light, either very hoppy or one of the lighter sweet beers. On the tongue, it was creamy.
I would like. I'd be so
rich.
interesting to try that because I'm not a. I've never been. I'm more of a. If someone's drinking a stout, I will try it from them, but it's too much. I'm one of those people where it's too much for me to have a full one.
Fair enough. Yeah,
that's interesting.
With that one, it was light in the stomach, but full fucking flavor, which was amazing. It was ridiculous. I got a bunch of those when they came out and nursed them out over a fair bit of time. And I'm also apparently going to have to check out my Total Wine and More to see if they have the Dragon's Milk bourbons that they release, it seems. So they've gone from just being a brewery to now being a brewery and distillery.
Oh.
And they do bourbon barrel aged beers, and now they do beer barrel aged bourbons.
Okay. Well, I have bourbon maple syrup. So it's maple syrup that is stored in old oak bourbon barrels.
Yep.
Delicious. It's absolutely delicious.
Oh yeah.
Well worth buying it.
Aging maple in bourbon, whiskey, stout, any of those barrels, oh good God, they're delicious. And Jameson had its cask mates that it did a while ago, where it was a similar thing. They had IPA cask mates where they got, I can't remember which brewery's IPA barrels, but they had this deal where the barrels that they used to age Jameson, they sent to one brewery for them to age IPAs in, and they sent to another brewery for them to age stouts in. So they had their stout mate, which was a whiskey aged in stout, and then that brewery had their Jameson stout mate one, which was a stout aged in Jameson whiskey barrels, and vice versa. Or sorry, the same with not vice versa. The same with the IPA, where they had ones that were aged in IPA casks, and then IPAs that were aged in Jameson casks. And Inquisitor says you're Canadian showing with your maple syrup.
Well, yes, but you know, there's different grades and deliciousness to it. It's like it is like wine. You have to know the good stuff.
Within a few moments, she's going to start talking about terroir with her maple syrup.
No. Not that Canadian.
Not quite so Canadian that you've gotten your diabetes from a sugar shack in the middle of winter?
No, I wish. I would love to. I would love to try that. But
I'm hoping that you mean you'd love to try a sugar shack rather than you'd love to try an either AKA or BKA.
The sugar shack.
Okay. That's good to hear that it was in fact the sugar shack that was the desire and not the amputation.
I like having my feet, but thank you. I don't need.
I'm absolutely going to need to now be on the lookout for Dragon's Milk bourbon, because that just sounds really fucking delicious. And they have a fair few lines of Dragon's Milk bourbon, it seems. They have 8 different types. I am definitely going to be looking for those. That's one thing. If a place
Uh-oh. Oh no. So, hello everybody. I think I'm in charge. I am the captain now. Okay. Uh-oh. Well, since it's, I hope people can still hear me. Um, and that Sanguine will be with us shortly. If not, I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. But I've also lost Adam as well. Uh, Dear cannibalistic wizard, this show is not going downhill. It is just over a little bump. You can't see it, Inquisitors, but I am doing a tap dance. I am. But since we have a moment to ourselves, let's see. I can regale you with the fun and stupid that I do at work. Oh, good, good, good. The steam will die. Hopefully soon, soon. Let it die soon. But no, Sanguine has just let me know it is a little bit of a connection hiccup. He hopefully will be here shortly, so that will save the stream. But I want to see for any guys who are still listening, if you can riddle me this. So we've had a long day with all sorts of silly people at work, all week, pardon me, and I had to deal. It started off with one individual asking for a diagnosis over the phone without coming in for an exam. So, if anybody ever wants to work in medical and you're wondering, well, I want to help people because I'm a good person and healthcare is important, where you're going to spend 98% of your time dealing with idiots who like this. And I'm sorry, I know it's not nice to say, but how do you expect to come in to a doctor's office and get diagnosed, or over the phone even, by just explaining your symptoms when we deal with internal scoping? I don't know. Please don't be that person when you go to your doctor. Ah. But yeah, hello, Michael Hatfield. Hello, Busters Outlaws. Welcome. I may be disappearing. I don't know, at some point. I'm not sure how long the stream stays up without the original host, but other than that, it is beautiful. I since it's a white girl host, I will admit that I have already had pumpkin spice latte because it is basic season. Well, there's some time, honestly, Cannibal. There's a couple of times when I just want to say, have you considered maid? Because the way you're going on and on and on, I think maid is indeed the best solution for you. We had a local person here. This is something interesting. Oh, I wish the other guys were here because this would be something that I would love to hear from their point of view. So we have, and I'm sure in the States it's there, Um, uh, sorry, hold on. I'm looking at quiz. Been told that the phone is reaching on touching someone, so is that enough? If your phone has a camera, like a cell phone, and that has a record function or like a FaceTime function, and then you can direct the phone to where the hurt is, then yes. In other words, stick it up your ear for where I work. But here, in regards to MAID, we have some religious hospitals still, like your Catholic hospitals from back in the day that still actually have, and I did not know this. I didn't realize that they were still uh, private in that they were owned by, or it was like a Catholic hospital. It's not private where as a person you have to pay for it because we don't have, because Canada, but in that it's not part of um, the overall health authority. And there was a very, very sad case recently where a young woman who was terminal cancer, she actually wanted to go through the MAID program, but the hospital denied her for a very long time. So this was going back and forth, and her health deteriorated quite quickly. So by the time they were at a position where they were basically given the final verdict by they went through some sort of medical ethics board, where the medical ethics board said that the hospital is allowed to deny her MAID because, right, it's essentially suicide, right? Doctor condoned suicide, so they said we cannot accept that because we're Catholic hospital. That's killing yourself. No. And because it took so long, by the time that they had to actually move her out of the hospital to a hospice care, sadly, she had to basically be put in an induced coma and passed away from that. Versus, her family didn't get a last final goodbye. Her final moments were of great pain. And it's one of those things where it's very hard to, on one hand, you said, okay, well, it makes sense to allow them to have this sort of authority over their hospitals, being a religious hospital, but they are open to the public at large. So it will be a very interesting conversation to have with people about what you would believe was there's no the more correct choice, because it's very hard to say in this situation whether one thing was correct over the other. Just because.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
for fuck's sake!
Hello, welcome back.
So what
Stream
did I
is
miss?
saved. I was just yattering away about Catholic hospitals and the MAID here. Yeah. Actually, my question, since you're back, I can pose it to you. So there was a case basically where it was ruled that a Catholic hospital, even though it's open to the public, the hospital denied MAID, which is the medical assistance in dying.
Yep.
Here, they denied that to a terminally ill cancer patient, and the ethics commission or ethics board, whoever the governing body that they appealed to, sided with the hospital and said they're allowed to say no. So my question is, which would have been better? Like, there's no easy answer in this situation, but at the same time, you're still Catholic hospital, backed hospital, but you're open to the complete public. So anybody off the street can go into this hospital, and they also have certain specialists that are only in this hospital. So if you need it for a very specific type of specialty, surgery or imaging or anything like that, it's this hospital. So it becomes interesting discussion of whether or not should they be allowed to deny MAID as a public hospital, because so Chris, she couldn't say I want a second opinion from a doctor not in this hospital. See, that's the problem with this case, Quiz, because there's not enough the ways our hospitals are here is they're really far spaced, so it's very possible that her specials for her particular cancer was at this hospital, this Catholic hospital. But it does seem or most likely they asked too late the question of would you allow if she decides MAID, because the thing is, once at the point where this young woman was at the point of asking for MAID, she was in excruciating pain and terminal, right? And she decided to go out with dignity, the idea that she'll be conscious and everything. And it's one of those things you don't want to blame the dead, okay? It almost feel like I want to blame her family for not being more proactive in this, and not looking into the policy of a Catholic hospital. But it's also new. It actually brought it up to the front because a lot of people didn't realize that the hospital was actually still Catholic run, and that they could deny something. Yeah, I agree, Michael. It's sad all the way around. Exactly. There's no real right answer here. If you say something, well, I understand. Why didn't the family do this? It's kind of like, well, she's dead already. What can you do, right? Like, it's easy to blame her family, but it does feel like questions weren't answered at the right time. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's a case of if it's just them going, look, we won't do this. If someone else will do it, we'll transfer you to them.
But that's
we won't do it.
That's what sadly, again, what happened is just you were out in the void when I was mentioning this in chat. Yeah. What happened was by the time they got through this stupid, they were trying to force the hospital through this committee to allow her to have MAID. Her health deteriorated to a point that when they lost, quote unquote, and had to move her to a hospice care, she actually to be even moved, she had to be put in an induced coma, and she sadly died that way. And I felt like that's a cruelty from the family, honestly.
Yeah,
but
to me that's cruelty from the family, because the solution shouldn't have been, well, you aren't willing to do this? No, we're going to force you to do it. It should be, okay, you aren't willing to do this, you can't in good conscience do this, we want to transfer her. That should have been the solution. Because to my mind, and I'm not sure how the Canadian laws work with this, so bear that in mind as well as I give my take. To my mind, it should be, if a doctor's willing to perform MAID, that's the doctor's choice. That's not something that should be forced upon a doctor that doesn't want to do it. And going, well, if they don't want to kill someone, then they shouldn't be a doctor. It sounds kind of fucked up to me.
I know.
So
it's so antithetical to
so I'm going to side with the that's a fucking stupid argument. So let's go for the common sense approach of, if a doctor is willing to do that, because their morality is such that they're going, yep, I think that it's better for someone to die to die as they want to die than it is for them to just slowly deteriorate and suffer. If that's the doctor's take and they're willing to do it, I have a hard time arguing against MAID in the instance of it's a terminal disease, which will not get better. It will only get even more hellish. Because that's the potentially blindly compassionate, but that's the somewhat compassionate side of me. That if I found out that I was going to die in excruciating agony and there was absolutely nothing that could be done about it, I was going to die, then I'd want to die more humanely.
Mm-hmm.
So if a doc's willing to do that, good on the doc. Let the doc do it. If the doc isn't willing to do it, don't fucking force the doc to do it. And as long as the doc isn't going to try to do a, well, no, I'm not going to transfer you to them. They're just going to help you die. Fuck you. You have to live, and we're going to keep on trying to do everything. That's when I would have a problem with it. If it's just, we're not going to do that, we don't offer that service here, that's kind of like, to my mind, that would be like going to a restaurant. Let's say you're going to, what's a good sandwich place near you? Or sandwich place that you're used to. Not Subway, a step up from Subway at least. But
Sure.
let's say Johnny's Sandwiches. It's a local sandwich place that does really good sandwiches. It'd be like going to Johnny's Sandwich and going, yes, I'd like to order the foie gras, and them going, we don't serve that. Well, you serve food here, right? Yeah. So I want that. Well, we don't do that here. But you serve food here. Okay, I'm going to sue you for not serving me this when you serve food. That's kind of what it comes across to me as. It's that's not one of the services they offer. So it becomes a, if you need that service, you go someplace else. Now, if they tried to prevent you, like using the sandwich shop example, if you say that and they say, well, we don't serve it, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll pay for what I've already had done here, and then I'm going to go to the place across the street and get the foie gras that I wanted, and the server pulls out a gun and goes, no, motherfucker, you're staying here. You're going to pick something that we serve. That becomes a problem. And that would be the instance of the hospital going, no, we aren't going to allow you to transfer. That's the reason why I was pissed off. I think it was France did it and England did it, where their national health services had, because it happened like 2 or 3 times, where there's a child sick with a horrendous disease.
It happened. I definitely know of a young boy in England. The parents tried to
get him
take
transferred
him
to the US.
to America, and they basically were
they kidnapped
prepared
the child.
To throw the parents in jail, basically.
Yeah, the
horrific
UK government kidnapped the child. And I use the phrase kidnap the child because they were forcing the child to stay in an area despite the parents' wishes. And it wasn't due to some proper legal basis. It wasn't like, oh yeah, the parents are currently in prison. It was them going, well, no, we don't want it.
I cannot remember the reason, but like, pardon me, the disease that the child had, but there was an experimental treatment that they wanted him desperately to have that the NHS refused. They got money through friends and family, and they were going to get on a plane.
Barred them from transporting their child, which is why I'm saying that it was the NHS kidnapped their child. Because the NHS controlled where their child could go. To me, that's kidnapping their child.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't for any valid reason. It wasn't that they were denying the parents custody of the child because they had been horrendously abusing the child, or the parents were in prison, so of course you can't have your child in prison with you. But it was just the NHS has an issue with people getting better quality of care if they can pay for it, so they declined it, saying if poorer people have to die due to this, well then your child has to die due to this. Fuck you, was effectively the argument. And yeah, unlawful detainment, which to my mind is a form of kidnapping. So, with that, those instances I have a problem with, because fuck that. If it's just the hospital goes, yeah, we don't offer that treatment, and you decide to go someplace else, and the hospital goes, okay, yep, best of luck, you're allowed to go there. I don't really have a problem with the hospital saying we don't offer that type of treatment. Because to my mind, if you open the door for, well, you can be pissed off at a hospital not allowing you to have MAID done, well then, naturally, you'd be able to get pissed off at a hospital that isn't able to handle Trauma 1 issues for not being able to handle Trauma 1. That would be fucked up. There's a lot of really useful Trauma 2 hospitals. There's Trauma 3 hospitals that are really useful. They aren't Trauma 1 capable, though. You don't need every hospital to be Trauma 1. So that's hospitals not offering certain services because they either choose not to or they just can't.
We have we also have hospitals here whose certain services only are for the people who live in certain municipalities. So, for example, the one that I found really interesting, and I felt it was a little bit odd. So we have one women's hospital. And if you want to give birth, you have to live, and I say this in quotes, so basically you need to have an address in the city. So if you're from any other municipalities outside of Vancouver, you cannot give birth in this hospital, even though it's the only women's hospital. And they've closed maternity units in other hospitals during COVID.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up to my mind. That is more of an issue than a hospital going.
The funny thing is you find these things out just because I was looking for pelvic physio for a patient. So I was researching to see where they can go, and I was like, oh, women's hospital should have it. And in the referral section, they're like, we can only see people from this municipality. We will not take other people. I'm like, oh, okay. That's real interesting.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that the family definitely fucked up in this scenario to me.
Yeah.
Because the proper response shouldn't have been, let's get in a protracted legal battle to try to force you to do something that you don't offer. It should have been, okay, you don't offer that. What facilities can we go to that offer it? And then transfer the patient to one of those facilities, go through with the process. Well, the patient couldn't get the level of care that they wanted at that other facility. I'm sorry, a corpse doesn't need advanced cancer care. If you're going for MAID, you don't need the latest and greatest onco equipment, because you're going to die. You aren't going to be there for a long period of time. So pass them on to the facility that will perform MAID, have MAID perform. Done. Dusted. Everyone should be happy then. The people that don't want to suffer didn't suffer. The people that don't want to have to be involved in killing someone don't have to be involved in killing someone. Because that's the thing. MAID is absolutely killing someone, but the difference is it's killing someone that it can be argued that killing them is a kindness. If the two choices are death in a more pleasant way or unending suffering until an extremely painful death, the former's the more merciful option. But not everyone's going to be able to deal with that. Not everyone should have to deal with that. And to try to force someone who goes, I can't do that because either the way that I process shit, me having been the person to actually kill them would fuck with me for the rest of my life, or due to my religious belief, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's fucked up to try to force them to.
No, it is, because then it's hard. It's hard to be to deal with any sort of like that kind of level of medical when you get to that point.
Yep.
Because you know what? Yeah.
There's certain things
I wouldn't want to be the doctor or the person in that situation.
Yeah, and there's certain things that pretty much everyone can agree on that you should be able to say, no, you're a doctor. You perform this procedure. A good example of one that pretty much everyone will go, no, you're a doctor. You perform this procedure is blood transfusion. There shouldn't be a, well, because I'm a, let's see, it's Seventh-day Adventists are one of the groups that I think are against blood transfusions. I could be wrong, but I think it's
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Adventists. Jehovah's Witnesses, that's a good one, because they're also against it. So, if you're a Jehovah's Witness doctor, I'm perfectly fine if you're against yourself getting a blood transfusion. But it's entirely a different matter if you say, I refuse to give anyone a blood transfusion. At that point, it becomes a, no, you're a doctor. Either do the job that you're being paid for, or get the fuck out. It's another thing when it's made.
And because... I want to say, Costin here, sorry, before you go on, his bandmate, aka euthanasia. I disagree strongly. I think the idea of euthanasia made is very good. How they're implementing it and then the memes surrounding it is what is bad. Because there have been people going to court just to be allowed to die. They are in such excruciating pain. Their life will have no more benefit. There's no way to get better. There's some people who are like that, where it's not a terminal illness in the sense that sadly you're due to cancer, you have like 3 months to live. It could be someone who is almost completely paralyzed, but still has horrible pain and will never get better, and may have an excruciating 20 years left of life without benefit, right? And if they choose to say, I want some dignity, I'm in my right mind, I don't want to live like this anymore, I believe they should be allowed, right? I think that is that's my feeling with that. But the problem with what they are doing and how some things are worded is they are introducing that for people who are also severely depressed, like the super clinically depressed person. I don't know enough about mental health and depression to comment on this, about whether or not those people can ever feel happy or standard or whatever you would consider it, the status quo to be. Whether or not, because some people, their brain chemistry doesn't work even with the meds we have nowadays, right? Like, if that's the problem, I don't know. But I just feel like that feels like it is throwing every single problem at the maid.
My issue is maid ideally should be much like the old standard when it came to abortion. Safe, legal, rare. It should be something that when it should be very strictly outlined when it can be done and what it could be done for. And to my mind, it should only be applicable when it's a terminal disease, is no cure, and it is going to be massive degradation or unending pain. Those are the criteria that I would have for it. But I'm depressed. Okay, that's terrible. That doesn't allow you to just be offed by someone.
Yeah.
It, again, terminal, either a unending degradation until death, or just absolutely hellish pain. And this is one of the criteria that I have with late-term abortion, because I don't think late-term abortion should be a thing for the most part. There are some exceptions. One of them is Tay-Sachs. You know what Tay-Sachs is, right, Sora?
I've heard that before. Is that
Tay-Sachs is a recessive genetic disorder that anytime that you express Tay-Sachs, which means that you have to have recessive and recessive, double recessive, it is going to be death before the time that you reach 2 years old.
Oh.
And it's going to be, you develop normally up until about 18 months. In the next 6 months, you're going to end up degrading. You're going to degrade while in absolutely hellish pain. And your mind will end up effectively being eaten away.
That's sad.
It is one of the most hellish death sentences of a disease. And it, of course, is absolutely traumatizing for the person who is suffering it, for the child that's suffering it.
So,
but almost worse is for everyone around them.
Well, yeah, no kidding. And especially if they're super young, they're still young enough to not be able to communicate with them what's happening.
Oh, that was the fucked up thing. Like I said, you develop normally until about 18 months. What typically happens at 18 months, Sora?
Is that when you start talking, walking?
You start being able to speak.
Yeah.
And then you degrade after 18 months. The child has just started to be able to say mommy, daddy, and single words. And then the pain starts. It's part of what makes it so horrendously fucked. And in the case of finding out that someone has Tay-Sachs, absolutely make it so that they don't have to suffer. That's torture for them. That's torture for everyone around them. Make it so that they don't have to suffer. If you find out that the child is going to have Tay-Sachs, which is a genetic test, they have to pop positive for double recessive. You do gene sequencing. If they have double recessive, they have Tay-Sachs. There is no, well, that could have been, no, they have Tay-Sachs if they have double recessive.
Yeah. It's so what's interesting here, Richard mentioned it's the Jewish disease. Yes, so according
Eastern
to the Mayo
European
Clinic
and Ashkenazi Jews.
Yeah, so risk factors for Tay-Sachs include having ancestors from Eastern and Central European Jewish communities, so the Ashkenazi, certain French Canadian communities in Quebec, the Cajun community of Louisiana, and Old Order Amish community in Pennsylvania. So they are the main risk for Tay-Sachs.
Yeah, and the two French communities are also due to European Jewish inmix. Probably the Amish as well, but the other two are definitely European Jewish inmix. Since it was fairly common that groups would end up spreading throughout Europe. And it's a disease that is effectively unheard of outside of those communities. So it's this very particular, very restricted, hellish death. And not only is it a hellish death for the person involved, it's hell on earth for everyone around them.
Yeah.
Because you've just had a mother and father that have just heard their infant say mommy and daddy for the first time. And then the rest of their child's life is that child screaming in agony as they can do absolutely nothing.
That's horrible. That's horrifying.
And there have been parents that have been absolutely fucked up by this because they ended up taking actions that were something that you could argue is merciful, but also something that is unbelievably horrendous. Because there have been parents that have checked their own children out, shall we say. Because they found out that their child had Tay-Sachs, and their child was in that all they experience is pain part of the disease.
Yeah.
And they just wanted their child to stop being in pain. And that fucks them up a hell of a lot more. So in instances like that, yeah, like I said, pretty much every instance, I'm against late-term abortion. That instance, do it.
Yeah. It's,
I'm not going to force anyone to do it, but do it.
Yeah. This is why I wish, I mean, obviously there's going to be some people who are going to take this the wrong way, but you can get genetic testing, right?
Yep.
But I kind of I wish here you could just go get your genes tested at any point.
Yeah.
But the only time it's really offered to you, and you have to pay for it, it's not covered. So you still have to pay out of pocket. It's a luxury add-on, so to speak. You have to be pregnant already. And I'm like, well, doesn't that defeat the purpose of genetic testing? Like, I would want to go with say, you're choosing it with a partner, you have your partner with you. Don't you want to get the testing at that moment to know whether, hey, we want kids, but should we be having kids? Yep. And then see where that takes your relationship. But you know what I mean? It feels like that's something.
There are options. If
Woo.
You have two people of Eastern European, Ashkenazi Jewish descent, where you both test positive as having Tay-Sachs recessive. So you go in, you do in vitro.
Yeah.
Every embryo is tested. If it's Tay-Sachs homogeneity, it isn't implanted. So you'll either have homogeneity, non-Tay-Sachs, or heterogeneity, Tay-Sachs, non-expressed. Because again, as it is a recessive trait, it will never be expressed unless it is recessive.
Learn your Punnett squares, kids.
Yep. And it's, like I said, I'm against it in pretty much every other extent. There's certain diseases that are death sentences, and they're hellish death sentences. And it is cruel and unusual to my mind to allow someone to suffer endless pain until they die. Because that's what you're damning them to.
Mm-hmm.
They will never experience, after it starts, they will only ever experience pain. They don't get to experience relief from the pain. They get to experience the pain and the worsening of the pain that makes the previous pain seem pale in comparison.
Yeah. We're being told we are
It's
on
depressing.
downer topics. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I was just apologizing to Rotten Corpse. That was kind of my fault because I was like, I panicked when you dropped, and I was like, I need a topic.
Yep.
But on the fun, okay, we'll end that with that's interesting information, and then Cannibalistic Wizard says, did any of us see the video of the guy who tried stealing a expensive amount of power tools and gets tackled by a good Samaritan in Hogtide? I have not, but I will look it up because that sounds hilarious.
Oh, was that the instance from, what was it, a week or
It's-
two ago in Texas?
That's oh my god! Did he rustle him up like a cow at the stampede?
Oh, the one that I saw, he was literally tied up, hands and feet behind back.
Yeah, that's probably what he's talking about. Hogtide. That
It was a proper hog tying.
serves
the
him
one
right.
that I saw. And I want to say it was in Texas that it happened in the video that I saw, but I've also seen a couple of them happen elsewhere where it's been. There's one even in. It was either New York or California, and everyone was going, "Whoa, people are getting pissed about this now, aren't they?" Because, yeah, the fact that it was happening there, that was a surprise. That is one thing that I'm slightly happy about. And it seems like a lot of people are getting pissed off about the stupid shit happening in their areas. And I hope that this translates to them realizing that, hey, if we vote for stupid shit happens. Maybe we should stop voting for stupid shit.
Oh, well.
That might be me being overly hopeful, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping. Since there have been a bunch of stories recently of there's one of the sections of Chicago that had a meeting not terribly long ago saying we need to do something about this fucking crime in the city, and also why the hell do we have so many goddamn illegals? And that why the hell do we have so much crime, and why the hell do we have so many illegals filling our area? It has also happened in New York and a handful of other deep blue areas, which I hope, maybe, possibly, beyond all hope, they might realize, hey, we voted for people that said that we should open up the borders. We have a shit ton of illegals that we don't want here. We have a bunch of people that were saying that we need to be more merciful to criminals. We don't like the criminals.
Yeah.
I'm hoping people realize that, so they go, maybe let's not vote for these people again. Since that was the thing that pissed me off when Lori Lightfoot got bounced out of Chicago. People were complaining that Chicago was becoming crime-ridden. It was.
Mm-hmm.
They were complaining about the policies that Lori Lightfoot put in place, which she did. So they said that they wanted to get rid of Lori Lightfoot. So they had a bunch of people that ran against Lori Lightfoot, and they voted for the only one that was more extreme in every single policy that they said was a bad idea under Lori Lightfoot. and they elected him.
And how did that work?
Crime has gotten worse. The issues that they're pointing to that were problems under Lori Lightfoot have all gotten worse.
Oh.
There has been absolutely no improvement because they looked at all the candidates and they said, who's the only one more insane? Him.
Yeah, that's sad.
And that's the reason why I hate the argument that people will make of, well, they voted for it. Because just saying they voted for it isn't helpful.
No.
But what absolutely is necessary is when shit like this happens, don't just go, well, you voted for it, so you deserve it. Because they're going to end up with a fuck you mentality. Go, look, you don't deserve this. No one deserves the shit that you guys have been having happen to you. You keep voting for it. Here's how these two things are connected. You don't deserve to have this happen to you. You shouldn't be having this happen to you. You have the power to stop this happening to you. Realize the relationship. If you don't like the crime, stop voting for people that say we should release the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the swarms of people coming in from other countries, stop voting for people that say that we need to completely open the border. Instead, vote for people that say the U.S., yeah, immigration is important to the U.S. because immigration is important to the U.S. But we need to have sensible immigration. We need to have immigration where we make sure that the rate at which we take people in is a rate at which those people can become Americans. Because we don't want to have a nation of immigrant visitors. We want to have a nation of citizens.
Yeah. We like you're looking at like Dubai or other places like that where their quote unquote immigrant population isn't really an immigrant, is just there for paycheck.
Yep. And some of them there because they're in slavery.
Yeah, that too.
I still can't get over the fact that there's a museum to slavery in, I think it's the Qatari Slavery Museum. So you're in the Middle East. You have a museum to slavery. What type of slavery do you think it's talking about, Sora?
I don't even know.
So it would kind of make sense if it was a museum about slavery within the Middle East, right? Considering that you're in the Middle East.
Yeah.
The Qatari Museum of Slavery is about the transatlantic slave trade.
What the fuck? Excuse me. What?
Oh, it gets better. Do you know how the Qatari Museum of Slavery was built?
With slavery? With
Yes, it was
indentured
built by
servitude?
slave labor.
It's funny because you gotta laugh.
Yeah, it was built with slave labor. So it's a museum about the transatlantic slave trade, which took place in the 1800s, in a country that is in a region that still has slavery. The country still has slavery. And not only does the country still have slavery, but in order to make the museum talking about the atrocities committed during the transatlantic slave trade, they used slave labor.
It's just... it's something else.
And if I remember correctly, there are more slaves in the Middle East right now, as we are speaking, than the grand total number of slaves bought and sold and bred during the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
Not there are more slaves globally, because, yeah, that's a stat that people like to brandy about. There are more slaves in the Middle East right now than the whole of the transatlantic slave trade.
It's not hard to believe.
Yep.
We can see that. Yeah.
And then we also have people that keep on trying to say, well, Arabic slavery is not as bad. One of the ones that really pisses me off is there was someone who claimed to be a history teacher not terribly long ago that was trying to combat the idea of Europeans being sold into slavery in the Middle East, and that was comparable to transatlantic slave trade. They're right, it isn't quite comparable. They are wrong in the direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, oh, so being whipped and forced to work in the fields is somehow on par with having to row a boat. The boats that they were referring to were the Barbary slave galleys.
The one where they were like chained to each other.
The ones where you're chained to your section of the bench. And the moment that you're chained to your section of the bench, that's the rest of your life. You aren't.
Oh yeah, that's
unchained from
totally
that
better.
section of the
That's more
bench.
humane. That's more humane. They
That-
even have water.
The records of the people kept in this condition frequently cite their skin fusing to the wood of the bench. They weren't allowed to be unchained to go use the bathroom, even to shit off the side of the ship, so they were forced to shit and piss while chained to their section of the bench. That was also where they slept. Also, the sections of the bench, or the sections where they were chained, did not have any sun cover. White people tend to burn very easily.
Yeah.
There's countless records of people's skin sloughing off. And when someone died, they'd just be unchained, thrown over the ship, and then another person would be chained in their shit and piss encrusted section of the bench to have their skin fused to the bench and their skin be melted off by the sun. So, they were trying to compare that while making it sound like, oh yeah, they're just rowing a boat.
Yeah, it's easy to say that because that would suit their narrative, right?
Yep. And it's like there was the person a while ago that was trying to say white people would never understand what it was like to be enslaved for 400 years. And there are a bunch of people that just commented, "You've never heard of the Barbary pirates, have you?" Because for those who don't know, the Barbary pirates raided from the time of the Moorish conquest of Spain up until the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And they raided all of Europe up to and including during, I think it was the Napoleonic Wars, was the last time an English town was raided for slaves by the Barbary pirates. So at the time when England was viewed as the undisputed masters of the waves, somehow the fucking Barbary pirates stole people. That's how ridiculous their time frame as this was. Yeah, like I said, the Museum of the Transatlantic Slave Trade in Qatar was made entirely with slave labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was commenting back on Michael saying slave trade still exists in the Middle East today. Yes, it
does. Yep.
Though I just realized it's getting late and it kind of sounds like you're winding down a bit.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a week. And it's getting late.
Yep.
But
no worries at all.
My energy has dipped, but it was really fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always a good time being able to bullshit with you. Mm. Do you have any parting words that you want to say?
Nothing profound. Just a very, very happy end of summer to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy your night. Have a cookie.
Nice.
Drink some warm milk. Go to bed.
Fair enough.
That's what I'm going to be doing anyway.
So, since we ended on a bit of downer topics, I think that I'm going to end with a different quote than normal.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite quotes from any bit of literature, and it's from the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson in book 4, I want to say, The Rhythm of War. This is by Wit. This is life, and I will not lie by saying every day will be sunshine. But there will be sunshine again. And that is a very different thing to say. That is truth.
Oh, I like that. That's very good.
Yep. One of my favorite lines from any bit of literature. But with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Good night.
And with that, let me click to end the stream. This always takes a couple seconds after I click the button. And, oh, this just froze. Let me see if it unfreezes. There we go. And now I can click this and see if it'll end. And now it should be the delay before it actually ends. So you guys are still hearing me say absolute nonsense as I'm just waiting for it to finally tick over and tell me that the fucking stream has actually ended.
Enjoy your ice cream, Richard.
Yes, enjoy your ice cream. What sort of ice cream did you get?
He's getting cookies and cream.
Ah, very nice.
Sounds very good.
And since you saw him respond to that, I'm now worried how much this is just frozen as I clicked end stream.
Well, I'm just going to say we're still live, and the live is still on our end.
Yep.
So...
yeah,
we're just going to hang around here for a little bit, guys. Well,
it froze at a very interesting time because...
oh, and... uh-oh. So I'm the captain again. I am not able to end the stream. So we're just going to hang out for a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. There's nothing much else to say. Since we're talking about ice cream, I personally love coffee a lot. But I don't have any. So that might be something I need to go get over this weekend. I also think, I don't know, Richard, if you're still hanging around and if you like coffee, but I love making affogato, which is basically a scoop of ice cream, traditionally vanilla, but I prefer like coffee ice cream, chocolate ice cream, and then a shot of espresso over it. allow it to melt a little bit, and then eat it that way. Oh my god. It's just the best thing. But yeah. Since I don't think we talked about food with Sanguine, so I prattle on as in the hopes that Sanguine will come back. Please God, let him come back. Trying to think, what did I do? I would recommend, if people out there like pasta, a very, very, very simple recipe is like in any sort of pasta dish would be something stuffed. And I really love, like, take anything. You can do shells, like the giant shells, or the is it cannelloni? I'm so bad at pasta shapes, but basically the giant tubes, and stuff them with ricotta and spinach. Very basic but delicious. Ricotta cheese is slightly sweet. It's always good to add some lemon rind. I wouldn't put lemon juice necessarily when you're baking it initially, but grating a bit of the rind inside, oh my god, it's so good. And then you mix it with the I always like to you need to cook down your spinach first. So kind of like wilt it a little bit just to get some of that bitterness out. Mix it with the ricotta. You stuff your already you can either do fresh, so it's emollient, or with the dry shells, it's best to cook them. I know some people don't like to do that, but I like to cook them. I can find fresh near me. So you stuff them and bake them, add some cheese to it. Oh my god, it's so good. And Sanguine. Sanguine just let me know, ask me if we're still going. I don't know if you can still hear me, so I'm assuming we are still live. Oh, that sounds good, Richard. That sounds very, very good, actually. I would like to try that. Ooh. Wontons. That sounds good. I love wontons, gyozas. I want to try of those. I went to a good friend of mine in university. We did for her birthday. We did a dumpling party. So basically, we made it was pork and scallion was the mix for the dumpling. So I guess basically we made gyozas, and we did not make the wrapper. She purchased the actual wrappers, and we just fried them all. It was delicious. What a good idea. If you ever want a birthday party, idea is make your friends come over and cook dumplings with you. It was the best thing. Have some drinks, do dumplings, delicious. Scallion pancakes, I haven't had that in a very long time. I've never made it personally, but I love ordering it. But I kind of now I'm thinking I have to bug her and get the recipe for the dumplings, because they were good. Anything you make yourself, though, tastes much better, I feel, like with anything, because you've put your heart and soul into it. But I'm trying to think of what. Oh, so there's a place near my work that does pot stickers, but specifically like a vegetarian pot sticker, where the actual wrapper itself has like I think spinach or something in it. Oh, I think Sanguine's back.
I'm back. I'm going to try to end it by this method. I'm currently on my cell phone. I had to log in on it because my computer decided to have internet issues again. So, again, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Good night. Thanks for letting me prattle on. Have a good night, Richard.
Thank you for covering for me while I've been having tech issues.
My pleasure.
And stream is